Everybody, Jake with Classic Daily and Fome ECU. Today we're going to continue on all of our videos explaining all the different tabs in Tuner Studio and showing you what happens in each one of those. Okay, we're not connected to an ECU, as you can see, and that's how the last handful of videos have been. It's a lot of information, so I'm just trying to get a lot of that out there for everybody. And we will do some videos with, or maybe we already have, based on when you're watching this, but we'll do some more videos on real life experiences in cars. So check the channel; those are most likely already there if you're coming to us at a certain time. So today we're going to talk about two tabs actually, because there's not a ton of information that we'll really go through in here, but I just want to explain them all so everything's covered and it makes sense. So we're going to go over sensors and controller. So in sensors, this is where you're setting up all your different sensors. We did go through some of this on the first video, just about how the inputs and outputs work. So the first four of these are going to be temp sensors. These are going to be sensors that are two-wire, just a ground, and then the signal. And then the ECU, most likely, or not most likely, does have a pull-up in it that handles that. So this is your coolant temp sensor and your air temp sensor. The settings are exactly the same. You're choosing your input. There are some that are common that you can choose, and then it will auto-populate in these settings, and then it will it'll also put them in there. Now in these ones, you can have a couple other temp sensors in here as well, and this is for oil temp or another coolant temp sensor, intercooler temperature, anything where it's just a two-wire sensor, and then it's you're gonna put the pull up that's in whatever ECU that you're running in this setting. Okay. If you have more questions about those, contact us. Check the wiki over at fome.tech. TPS and accelerator pedal, because these both work sort of hand in hand. So this car has, so let's back step. TPS is going to be a throttle position sensor. These are the sensors on the actual throttle. This is on the throttle body itself. Accelerator pedal, so if you have a car with an electric throttle body, there are also sensors in the pedal. Okay. If you have just a standard throttle body with a cable, you're not going to worry about this page at all, and you're going to only worry about TPS. So you're going to only have one throttle body, one sensor. If you have an electric throttle body, then you're going to have two sensors for the pedal, two sensors in the throttle body. If you have a V12 and you have two throttle bodies, you're going to have two sensors for the pedal, two sensors for throttle body 1, two sensors for throttle body 2. And they're all going to talk together. Okay. So it works the same like everything. You're setting up your inputs. These are going to be your ranges for the voltage coming in, and then to give you the 0 to 100% throttle. And we'll have a whole another video explaining a lot of this with electric throttle body, or it's already out there, and check it out. Map sensor. So map sensor, this is going to be if you have a vacuum sensor that is reading your load. A lot of the plug and play ECUs have this on board. So you're going to choose the input, and then you're going to choose whatever kind of sensor it is. Now, if you have a universal ECU or you have a different setup, and there's a sensor out in the engine bay, again, same thing. You're just choosing it here. If it's a sensor that's already set up, it'll auto handle all the values. Okay. If it's a custom one, you can choose a custom one and type the information in. We're not going to talk too much about map sampling. So this is how it's sampling across the engine, and that's based on whatever engine you have. Some of the smaller replacement engines are a little bit different on that. Baro sensor, if you have a barometric sensor, then you can set that up here. MAF sensor, if you have a MAF sensor, you would set that up here. You have whatever, it's a voltage style MAF sensor, not frequency is what we support, just the voltage. And you could, or if you had two of them, you have them both in there. And then once you put an input, you're going to have this math transfer function, and this would be the transfer function. It's a 64 number long. A lot of times you'll get you'll have your functions will be 255, 256. ChatGPT is a really good friend of yours, and it can readjust those values to this if you're using a math. We're gonna turn that off. Turn that off. EGO sensor, that's your wideband sensor. If you're running onboard CAN wideband, you're going to hit true, and that's going to use the Fome RusAFI CAN wideband, which is on the universal and on most of the plug and play setups. If you're inputting through an analog sensor, you can do it that way, and you can choose your analog input. If you have a heater output, what that's going to do is that's like you have a relay on the outboard that turns on the heater for the wideband. That's going to handle that. So it's going to turn on once the car is running. All right. RusAFI wideband controller. So the sensor, the Fome uses the RusAFI, which is designed by the same group of guys really they'll do most of the firmware on Fome. And just as stayed the name because that's what it is and what it has been, because Fome was a fork of RusAFI, kind of set up at the same time. So you could hit this and upgrade your firmware. If it's a new setup, you can choose the index of the sensors if you have more than one. So if it's a V8 or a V12 or whatever you have, two banks or a 6-cylinder of 202 sensors, you can read them both. When you do this, make sure that if you're setting that index of 0 or 1, that your sensors are unplugged from that CAN bus. Otherwise, it's going to make things upset. This would be the CAN bus that it's on, number 1 or 2, because our setups have two buses. Force O2 sensor heating. This is a neat one. So if you had it set to no, the wideband will not start heating up and start becoming active until it sees RPM, until the engine is running, because that helps save the sensor, gives the sensor more life. Now, if you want to force O2, so that would mean that when you if you hit this to yes, you turn that key on, it's going to start warming that sensor up instantly, whether the engine's running or not. So why might this be good? If you're tuning idle, if you're tuning cold start, if you're tuning startup stuff, and you want to see what the engine's putting out right away from the moment it starts, set this to yes, turn your key on, let that O2 sensor warm up, and then right here by my head, you'll start seeing some data here. Then start the engine, and then you're going to quickly see and then log it. You're going to quickly see what the engine is giving out on that first start. Well, it was super rich, super clean, or whatever. And then you can adjust your strategy to make it run better with that information. Later down the line, I would then set this to no, so that it just warms up regularly, because it's not using that data to do any sort of calculations that early on when it first starts up. It's just for your eyes. So this VR sensor threshold, that's going to be sort of in the works, not really ready just yet. So that's to adjust an onboard VR sensor threshold that the ECU is talking to. Vehicle speed sensor, digital input, this is coming from a wheel speed sensor, CAN bus, blah, 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 lots of different setups. And then all your settings throughout here are going to affect the vehicle speed. So you can cruise along and you should be able to see what that speed is. It is in kilometers per hour. So you can run CAN here too, and you can choose what data, which you can then do lots of stuff here. Boost by gear, different things, kind of whatever you want. Oil pressure sensor, oil temp sensor, fuel pressure, fuel temp sensor, fuel level sensor, ambient temp sensor, compressor discharge. All these here are just more sensors, just like up here, but they are analog volts. So these are going to be a 3-wire sensor, and you need to put your scaling in there. So let's go back to that. So then you have to have your scaling for whatever data you have. Look at the data sheet for the sensor that you're using, type it, put it in here, and then you're going to get the correct information. Okay, so in the case of oil pressure, like we talked about in the limits, these two are going to talk together. They're going to work. All different sensors, aux sensors. These are just more linear sensors. You got more inputs, you can run them. It's just going to call them aux linear. So whatever you might want, you can get the data back and log it and look at it. Do it as you please. Miscellaneous sensors, that's going to be your clutch down, clutch up. If there's two different sensors, a lot of times it's usually one, and it's back and forth. Brake pedal switch, flex fuel sensor. This would be a digital input and a frequencies type sensor. All right. Whew, lots of information. Controller. Not gonna go over a lot here because again, we could go over everything. ECU simulator. So what this actually does is it will simulate an RPM. This should only be done if you're trying to test something and you're really aware of what's going on. Make sure you're turning off fuel and spark, because it will spray fuel. It will spark even if the throttle bar is closed. Just be aware. I wouldn't mess with this if you don't know what's going on. Bench test, you can turn relays on, test out if your fuel pumps turn on and off, all through this page. Injector test, which is the exact same page as over here. Same exact page. It's to test injectors, as we talked about on that page. Ignition coil test, same exact thing as this one over here. Just doubles up. CAN bus. So CAN bus communication, we're going to worry about that. CAN bus is going to be, if you're turning the CAN on, it's got all different inputs, outputs, styles. If it's going to broadcast the Fome CAN bus, if you need the DBC, it is located on fome.tech. And you can use it for any dash or whatever you're trying to do. And we'll have a whole nother video really about that, because it's a whole nother thing in itself. Okay. There's some more things in here, but we're not going to go into that because it's not really too knowledge needed for what we're trying to do. And some of it's some kind of experimental stuff and some things that are kind of legacy and just haven't or were used and aren't really fully active anymore. Okay. Whew, a lot of stuff in those ones. Check them out, read, look, poke around, keep thinking about how the stuff works. We'll have some more videos, and we already have lots of videos about how this works, and show you how they work on cars, so you actually know what it's doing on the dyno. Have a great day, everybody. My name is Jake, Classic Daily. Check out the website classicdaily.net, where we have all sorts of BMW PNP ECUs, Universal. Check out Fome.tech, where we have a lot of information about the firmware, and check out the Discord and all over. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.